Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the review of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again Season 2, the penultimate episode, the second to last episode of the season, episode 7, entitled The Hateful Darkness, which is coming off of an episode that was pure chaos at the end of episode 6. We saw Karen Page get apprehended by the task force. Daredevil and Kingpin had a fisticuff. Bullseye is recovering in Matt and Karen's little safe house that is actually the Punisher's or Frank Castle's apartment. We see Daniel and BB being, have their little come to Jesus moment at Daniel's mother's house, where Daniel discovers that she is indeed the mold who has been spreading this propaganda against Mayor Fist, aka Kingpin. A lot was set up for these final two episodes, and namely this episode. Episode 7 starts off on kind of a quieter note. And then when we left off in 6, Wilson Fisk, he's suiting up. It looks like he's preparing to address the New York faithful or whatever. And he notices as he's, getting dressed or whatever, that one of Vanessa's earrings have gone missing. And so this is not setting too well with with Wilson, of course. We see Karen Page being booked at the jail, going through all of the proper procedures, being script searched and fingerprinted and all that goodness. And as she enters her cell, she gets a visitor. No, not from Matt. No, not from Frank, but from Kingpin himself. He comes in and pays Karen Page a visit, calls her a criminal for helping Daredevil. Karen, never shy for showing her defiance, stands up to Kingpin and he chokes her through the bars, and he claims he is restoring order in the city. And so he lets her go after almost crushing every bone in her neck, and tells her that she has one phone call to use and use it wisely. And so that's when we get our opening credits at that moment. At this point, I'm like, okay, this is a good start to this episode. We see now that Kingpin isn't just out for revenge in a typical comic book villain way, kill her or string her up, use her as bait, whatever the case. Well, he is kind of using her as bait, but not in the conventional sense. He's actually going to put her on trial. She's going to go on trial in front of the world, cameras, courtroom, all the goodness, just to basically humiliate her. And so this was his way of kind of flushing out Daredevil or Matt Murdock, which we learn later on in this episode. And so after the credits, we catch up with Mr. Charles as he's sleeping so soundly in his bed, and he wakes up to find Jessica Jones chilling, waiting for him to wake up. And she's furious that he being Mr. Charles has sent men to her house to kill her. Not only kill her, but her daughter was there as well. That angered her even more. And he claims it was a mistake. That wasn't the intent. He just wanted her to back off, to chill while all this is going on. And so she threatens to kill him if he ever targets her or her daughter again. But Mr. Charles, he drops a nugget on her, like, yeah, a little birdie told me that your powers aren't what they used to be these days. We were told last episode that her powers are kind of coming and going. And so she isn't the Jessica Jones that we last left off in the Netflix series. Ever since she had her baby or had her daughter, her powers haven't been up to snuff. And Mr. Charles knows this, but he also drops another nugget. It was implied in episode 6 that her husband, Luke Cage, is working for Mr. Charles. And we didn't get a name drop or nothing, but we all assumed that it was Luke Cage, and our assumptions were correct when he was actually name dropped at this point of the episode, when Mr. Charles basically told her, like, look, if you do anything to me, I won't tell you where Luke is. I won't inform you of how he's doing overseas. He's doing a job overseas. And so she doesn't have to. And so she accuses him of orchestrating Fist's arms deal, and he explains that the deal is dead since two vigilantes destroyed the weapons. Those vigilantes being Daredevil and Jessica Jones. And so he claims to be finished with Fist, and mentions that the governor wants Fist out. She's looking to remove him from office. And so he doubts Jessica can pull off a move against him without facing serious danger, not only for her, but for her daughter as well. And so Jessica, she informs Matt Murdock of this information that she got from Mr. Charles as they met on a rooftop. Both realize that Fist intends to assassinate the governor. And so we get Cherry returns after his near-death experience. He returns and reveals that Karen is being held in jail, but there's a complication. Like I mentioned before, she is booked legally in police custody. It's a legitimate thing, which means Matt can't simply break her out as Daredevil like he did for those prisoners being held at the Red Hook. And so that complicates things. So Matt insists that she isn't safe, but Cherry reveals that they do have an inside man at the precinct that she's being held in that can kind of protect her. So Jessica tells them that she can't assist any further because that would put her daughter's life in jeopardy. And like Karen did previously, she suggested that Matt needed to do what he needed to do in regards to Kingpin, which means kill him. You got to put him down. And Matt is still struggling with this notion. And so Daredevil, he returns back to the hideout. He uncuffs Bullseye, who is still there, and asks if he can perform one good deed to balance the scales and repay his debt. And he admits that he hates Bullseye for what he did to Foggy. He killed him. He hates him. And not only to Foggy, but to the priest, and what that was, I think that was in season 2 of the Netflix series, or it could have been season 3. I think it was season 2, and other people, the other 100-something people that Daredevil has murdered. Not Daredevil, Bullseye. Bullseye has murdered, and he offered him a chance of redemption there. So Bullseye says he can't promise anything, and that was that. And so we go back to Karen, who's in her cell, and she's visited by Ross, who's the inside man, Cherry's inside man, I should say. And Karen is relieved to see a friendly face finally. And so he pulls some strings to transfer her to his precinct. And so he sneaks her outside to meet Daredevil. The two apologize to one another, and Karen says she can't leave with him because she has to see this through. She has to have her day in court. And Matt, he explains that he didn't come to break her out. So he warns him, or she warns him, that Kingpin is more dangerous than ever at this point. He's basically unhinged. And Matt counters that Wilson Fisk is losing his grip on the city. He knows that his power is dwindling at this point. He knows about the governor. He knows not only he lost his wife, and his allegiances are starting to crumble around him as we speak. So he's becoming the king without a crown, so to speak. And so because of this, Kingpin wants to keep this particular case legitimate and televised. And so Matt tells her that they will have to cross lines in order to stop him, but not the lines that you're thinking of, Karen. And so we go back to Kingpin little office or Oval Office, whatever it is he has over there, City Hall, whatever. And he's speaking to the DA about the case with Karen. And Kingpin demands she be charged with every possible offense that he can throw at her. And so the DA notes that the Attorney General will want to get involved himself. But Kingpin is like, nah. And so at this point, we get Heather. Heather returns. She arrives and to have a meeting with Kingpin as the DA leaves. But before he steps out, he asks Heather for her expertise in this Karen Page case, and she graciously accepts the offer. And so Heather asks Fisk how he is doing, after his wife was murdered. And he admits that he's feeling alone at this point, and expressing acceptance of her work. And he presents her with the other half of that earring that matches the one that she stole last last episode. And she apologizes because she knows this man is not on stable, mentally stable ground. And so she is scared to death. And I love this scene because you could see the fear in her. She knows that she is skating on very thin ice, having stole a prized possession of his wife, who literally died in his arms. But he tells her that, she shouldn't be. Don't apologize, and notes that he finds it curious when people act out of impulses, because this is outside of Heather's, normal activities to steal something, especially something that precious. And so he found it interesting that she would step out of the norm or think out the box or whatever the case may be by taking that earring. So he gives her the other earring to keep as a, I guess, token. And so we go back to Karen, who arrives at the courthouse. We see the people outside the courthouse, some cheering, others on the other side, of course. And Kirsten is acting as her counsel in this case. And we go back to Daniel. Daniel, who is at his mother's house, still with BB, keeping her there overnight as a form of quote unquote protection, because he knows that Buck wants her. But he is so angry, much of he's angry at her for betraying him. But at the same time, he knows that he isn't an angel himself. And so he's struggling. And knowing he can't continue to stall Buck, who is hounding him about the whereabouts of BB, he apologizes for how they used each other. And he asks if she was working with Karen Page. And she doesn't answer. But she does kind of go off on him about her work and how Kingpin killed her uncle. And we remember that from the first season of Daredevil on Netflix. And he being Daniel, he's reluctant to say yay or nay. And finally he breaks. He's like, yeah, I know he did it. I've been knew, but he tells her Buck is waiting for his call, and that they need to run. And so she asks for a phone. He refuses because he don't trust her. And then we see a text, and it's a text to Buck with an address. And so Buck receives the message in Kingpin's office. He tells Kingpin that Daniel, yeah, he's a good guy. He's useful. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And Kingpin was like, yeah, of course. And so they watched the news coverage of the trial, and they're wondering if she would draw out the bigger fish being Daredevil or Matt Murdock. And the trial begins. The DA and Kirsten, they give their opening statements on the trial. The DA calls for conviction, while Kirsten argues that the true definition of a vigilante. And so the room is packed with Karen supporters and members of the task force, and both witnesses are called. Kirsten asks the judge to introduce her co-counsel. So we're like, oh, who's co-counsel? Who's going to help out? Oh, man, big mystery. None other than Matt Murdock. He enters the courtroom in full Matt Murdock attire. And he takes his seat in helping defend Karen. And so Fisk, he's watching the broadcast, and he's, believe it or not, surprised. He's surprised that Matt Murdock came to this trial as Matt Murdock. And so Matt, he begins questioning Powell, and the two, they kind of throw jabs at each other, verbal jabs at one another. The DA then questions Cole, who recounts the fight at Matt's apartment from the first season finale, and she asks, she asks why they were there in the first place, and he claims that it was a welfare check, and Kristen is like, oh, you need automatic weapons and all that firepower for a welfare check, you know? And so she asks if Karen was present, and he said that he was told she drove the getaway vehicle, but did not see it for himself. And so finally she asks who else Powell has ordered, or what else has Powell ordered him to do, mentioning the murder of the White Tiger, Hector, from the first season, and whether those orders came from Mayor Fisk. And so that caused the stir in the courtroom. We move over to the governor's mansion, where the governor is finishing a call with the attorney general and prepares to move forward with a suspension paperwork to end Wilson Fisk's reign as mayor of New York City. And so she emphasized that they must act quickly while the window is open, because he's weak now. He's a wounded animal at this point. So now if there was a time to act, it'll be now. We go back to find Daniel and BB. They pull up to that location that Daniel had text Buck, and she begins to get a little suspicious. Actually, she should have been. This is the only part of the episode that got me mad. It was her. It was BB, because it wasn't the actress. It was the way they wrote this whole little setup here. She was so naive. She was so naive and not understanding what was going on at this moment that Daniel would do this. I understand that they have a friendship, maybe even a relationship brewing, but it was to the point where you just were so blind you couldn't see that this man was literally leading you to your death. But at this point, she finally starts to get a little suspicious. He admits his guilt about helping Buck dispose of a body upstate and everything, and he reaches the destination and he begins to drag her out the car. So she asks him if he really wanted to do it, and that kind of sparked the change of heart. And this is what I was talking about in this where I was just did not agree with this episode. It was so quick. Just that little statement changed him. Not the discussion that they were having at his mother's house or on the way there and whatever. You get literally to the front door and decide, okay, let's go. You got to leave before he sees you or whatever. I just did not like the way that went. It was done so cheesy, like everything was going well up to that point, and it was a very good moment, but it was just ruined in my humble opinion on the execution style of it. And so we move. Well, BB does get away, but Daniel goes to meet Buck. And basically, meet his end. At this point, you knew what was about to happen. And so we move on. The task force, they're waiting for Matt to leave the courtroom while Kingpin remains at home. And so in the parking garage, we get a group of actual honest officers attempting to escort Matt and Christian to their vehicles safely, but they are ambushed by the task force. And Matt, he protects Christian during this onslaught while Cherry and other officers fight back. And Matt, he end up getting shot in the leg during this assault. But he and Christian, they did manage to escape. So we go back to the governor's mansion, and there's an assassin that creeped in, got into the house, and begins to strangle the governor. But before he can get the job done, we see pins and it's whatever else flying down the hall, striking the assassin, and he didn't die, but we can assume that he is going to die, saving the governor, and he leaves the house before the police can arrive, and that was his one good deed. We go back to Daniel. Daniel meets up with Buck at that apartment that he had texted about, that abandoned apartment, and Buck asks, "Hey, where's BB?" And Daniel tells him she isn't coming. And this was heartbreaking. And it was heartbreaking double fold, because it was heartbreaking because I grown to like the Daniel character. I wasn't a big fan of him in season 1, but I grew to like him this season. And I knew that this was it for him. If he didn't walk in there with BB, he was done. And the fact that Buck, who, just like me, grew to like Daniel, he really liked Daniel, and he did not want to do this. And it pained him to do it. And the actor who plays Buck, you can feel it on him, bro. You could see it on him. It was like, if you're a parent, right, and of a young child, and you have to discipline that child, and it pains you to do it, but you gotta do it. That's basically what it was. It tore him up. It was hurting him, and this is a famous line from my mom when I used to get my little spankings. This is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. And I always was like, "Woman, are you crazy?" But once I got children, I understood it. Yeah, this sucks, man, that I gotta do this. And you get mad all over again because your child, you making me do this. And that's Buck in this moment. And so he just demanding for where she's at. What's her location? And Daniel, he legit didn't know. He told BB before he allowed her to run away, "Don't tell me where you're going, just go." Because he knows that he was going to get it beat out of him. So you can't beat out something that's not there. And he, true to form, Buck begins to just monkey stomp him, bruh. I mean, mollywop him all through that apartment. We go back to Karen's cell, and she gets another visitor. This time it's Heather. And she has turned her villainous side up to 11 at this point. She's all in. She's a made woman at this point because she has the earrings of Vanessa, and she just feels unstoppable at this point. So Karen, she declines to have this psychological evaluation done by Heather because she knows what time it is, and Heather, she insists that this isn't how it works. And Karen claims that she already knows how to beat the questionnaire and suggests that, she do something else. Do something else, because you going through the whole rigmarole is not going to work on me. And so Karen begins to talk about her relationship with Matt. And it was interesting because you got the girlfriend and the ex-girlfriend in the room at this moment. And and Karen being Karen, man, she brought up Matt. And this just, you could it was a moth to a flame. It was like gasoline to a flame. That's what I meant to say. Gasoline on a flame. And you can see it in Heather's face. She was ready to kill her. And she did eventually. But before she did that, she turned off her recorder and it got personal. It continued to it got personal. And so Heather, she brings up Karen's history. She brings up the death of her brother, the death of Wesley, her relationship with Matt and Frank Castle. I mean, they were going at it verbally, man. And so they, after trading these verbal barbs, Heather, she was like, well, she went ahead and slapped the taste out of Karen's mouth. She warns Karen that she don't pity her. I don't feel sorry for you. And Karen's like, well, it's too late. And Heather, she hits her again, even harder than the first time. And Karen, she laughs at her. she like, that's all you got. And Heather, she leaves. She just leaves out. And so we go back to Buck and Daniel. Buck is still torturing Daniel. He's beaten to a pulp. Daniel continues to protect BB, and Buck, he draws his gun out at this point. He's like, well, the beating ain't working. Now I got to go to more extreme measures. He pulls the gun out. Daniel makes a final attempt to reason with him, asking how long it will be before Buck is the one laying on the floor with a gun to his head. So Karen, we see her return to her cell, visibly beaten in the face. Kingpin is shown at his house, pondering his next move. We see Matt. He's going to the church. He asks somebody there. They didn't specify who that was, but he asked them to pray for him. And he's feeling helpless and alone at this point. So he prays to God and asks him, I need help. Send me some help. And so just as he finishes, Jessica Jones enters the church. And as we wrap up the episode, we hear a gunshot in the apartment with Buck executing Daniel, and it fades to black. Man, good episode. Slower episode, quieter episode than what we left off with last episode, but this was awesome, man. This was an awesome setup from what we're going to get in this final episode of season 2 next week. I think we're going to get some surprises. Not so much surprises. I think Luke Cage will pop up next week. Might even get a Frank Castle appearance next week, because let's not forget, right after this wraps up, this being Daredevil Born Again, we get that special presentation from Marvel and Disney Plus with the Punisher One Last Kill the following week. And so I think that's going to be set up from this episode or this upcoming episode. So there's a lot set up here. What's going to happen with the trial? How would this gunshot affect Matt Murdock going into this final episode? Because he's not going to be as agile as he was before. What's Kingpin's next move? Now that Buck has murdered Daniel, is he on the hunt for BB now? Will he track her down? What's next for Bullseye? He did his one good deed. Now he's back to being Bullseye. So he's out there. There's a lot going on. What about the governor after her failed assassination attempt. What moves are she going to make? It's a lot. It's a lot that they're going to have to compound into this episode, and I'm all for it. I can't wait. But as far as episode 7, it was good. It was probably the weaker of the season, but with that being said, it was still a very good episode. I want to know your thoughts of episode 7, The Hateful Darkness. What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Are you excited for the season finale next week? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again. Don't forget, I'll be back next week for the season 2 finale of Daredevil Born Again. I can't wait. I'll talk to you then, but until then, I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.